The last of the identities that we have to review that we went through in Unit 1 would be our even identities and our odd identities. Okay? And you have to say either that it's an even or an odd. You can't just say even odd. So you have to identify if the identity used is even or odd. You cannot give both. Okay, so you need to make the statement, this is an even identity, or you would say this is an odd identity. Okay, you cannot just give a generic answer. So the two even functions would be cosine. So the cosine of x would be the same thing if you took the cosine of negative x. And I showed you why in Unit 1. It would be the same thing for the secant. So the secant of x is the same thing as the secant of the opposite of x. So an example would be the cosine of 45 degrees is the same thing as the cosine of negative 45 degrees. And if you wanted to take a look at that on your calculator or on the unit circle, you can do that. We have 4 odd functions, and remember I used odd is opposite. That's how I remember. So the sine of negative x would be the same thing as the negative sine of x. Okay, so if I took the sine of negative 45 degrees, it would be the same thing as the opposite of the sine of 45 degrees. And I keep using 45 degrees because it's an easy one. Same thing for the cosecant. So the cosecant of negative x would be the same thing as the opposite of the cosecant of x. And both tangent and cotangent are both odd. So this is the opposite of the tangent of x, and this is the cotangent of negative x. So what you need to remember is that any powers are valid for even odd identities. An example would be cosine squared of x is the same thing as the cosine squared of negative x, or the opposite of tangent of x to the 5th power is the same thing as the tangent to the 5th power of negative x, just so you can see an example.